Welcome to Revenge Report. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more. Let's dive in. I never expected to hear from her like that. It was late afternoon when my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number flashing on the screen. A quick glance at the caller ID told me it was the event planner for my parents' anniversary celebration. I didn't even know my siblings had planned anything. But then again, we'd barely spoken in months. Hello? Hi, is this Emma Harris? The voice on the other end asked, sounding professional but tinged with hesitation. That's me, I said, suddenly on edge. What's this about? I'm calling regarding the anniversary celebration your family's organizing for your parents. We've been coordinating the details, and I was told to speak with you about your involvement. She paused before continuing. I was instructed to let you know that your siblings, well, they've asked to remove you from the guest list. I blinked, my breath catching in my throat. What? I tried to keep my voice steady, but the shock was already setting in. They what? Yes, I'm afraid they've made the decision, and it's final. However, they're still expecting your financial contribution. Her tone had a slight edge, as if delivering bad news had become second nature to her. The words didn't make sense. My mind raced, trying to process it. How could they do this? After everything, I had helped with every celebration, every occasion, every little thing they needed for as long as I could remember. And now, I was being excluded from my own parents' anniversary celebration. I had built my life quietly, creating a successful business in the hospitality industry. It wasn't always easy, and I'd faced more ridicule than I cared to admit. My brother Marcus, especially, had always belittled my career choices. He was a corporate lawyer, climbing the ladder at an impressive pace, while I had chosen to stay grounded in the world of events and catering. It was a punchline to him, my soft industry, always a jab about how I wasn't really doing well unless I had a suit and a corporate office. But they didn't know what I had built. They didn't see the empire I had quietly erected from the ground up. You can tell them I'm not contributing anything. The words left my mouth before I could fully process them. There was a strange sense of power in saying it out loud. A release. I beg your pardon? The planner sounded taken aback. I said, I'm not contributing anything. I won't be involved in any way. My voice was firm now, resolute. If they want to exclude me, that's their choice. But they can't expect me to finance their party while they do it. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I understand, she said quietly before hanging up. I stared at my phone for a moment, the weight of my decision settling in. I knew I had made the right choice, but it didn't stop the flood of emotions that followed. Hurt, anger, disbelief. They didn't care about me. They had never truly cared. It was always about what I could provide, never who I was. A few years ago, I would have begged for their approval. I would have silently accepted their insults, their disregard, just to keep the peace. But not anymore. Not today. I stood up from my desk, my mind already calculating the next step. My company would pull out of their event. No flowers, no catering, no venue space. Let them scramble for the pieces I had always been there to put together. I had given them everything, and they had turned their backs on me. It was time for me to take back control. It didn't take long for Marcus to call. He was furious, and the anger in his voice was unmistakable when he practically shouted, "What the hell do you think you're doing?" I was sitting at my desk, staring at the blank screen in front of me. My finger hovered over the keyboard, but I couldn't focus. The message I had sent to the event planner earlier was still rattling in my mind. The decision I had made to withdraw from their celebration was final, and there was no going back. But it wasn't just the event planner who would feel the consequences. It was my whole family. Marcus, calm down. I'm not going to be a part of it, I said, trying to keep my voice steady as I picked up the phone. Not a part of it? He scoffed. You think you can just back out like this and everything will be fine? You're the one who's always insisted on handling things for everyone. And now, when it's time to help, you pull the rug out from under us? He was pacing, his words crashing into the receiver like waves. I took a deep breath, mentally steeling myself. You and the rest of them made your decision. You excluded me from the anniversary party, and yet you still expect me to foot the bill. That's not how it works, Marcus. I'm done being your financial safety net. You're being ridiculous, he retorted, his voice harsh with disbelief. This is about family, Emma. It's not about money. I laughed bitterly. Family? Is that what you call it? Family is supposed to be supportive, not just there when you need a handout. And let's not pretend this is about anything but control. You never respected my business, Marcus. You always mocked me for choosing a different path. And now when it suits you, You're expecting me to pick up the slack for your convenience." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. For a moment, I thought he was going to yell again, but instead, he softened. "I never mocked you, Em. I just didn't get it. You were always so wrapped up in your events and parties, while I'm out here working my ass off, building a career." I let his words hang in the air. It wasn't the first time he'd said something like this, and it certainly wouldn't be the last. Marcus had always been the golden child, the one who did things by the book. He didn't understand why I had chosen to build my own business, a business that had grown beyond what he'd ever imagined. Quietly, behind the scenes, without the need for validation. It wasn't just a job for me, it was my empire, my life. "Well, I don't need your approval anymore," I said, holding firm. "I've quietly supported all of you for years, but that ends now." Marcus sighed heavily. "Are you really going to do this? Stop helping us entirely?" I hesitated. This was more than just about pulling out of one event. It was about reclaiming my life. For years, I had put my family's needs before my own, covering tuition for his kids, settling his business legal issues, picking up their bills without a second thought. And this was how they treated me, excluding me from something as important as my parents' anniversary party. "I already sent the legal paperwork to your office. I'm not just withdrawing from the event, I'm officially cutting ties," I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. "I'll be sending all the documentation soon. Consider it my final gesture." There was silence for a moment, then a sharp intake of breath from Marcus. "You're serious, aren't you?" "Dead serious." I felt a pang of guilt as I said the words, but it was fleeting. I had spent years being the family's unacknowledged provider, and this was the first time I'd taken control of my own narrative. My empire wasn't something to be ridiculed, it was something to be respected. "Fine," Marcus said, though his tone was still sharp. "But don't expect me to ever need anything from you again." "Don't worry," I replied coolly. "You won't." He hung up without saying goodbye, and I set the phone down, feeling a mix of relief and sorrow. The line between family and obligation had been irrevocably crossed. The decision I had made was final. There was no going back now. The phone rang at 7:45 a.m., the number flashing across the screen, sending a jolt of anxiety straight to my chest. It was my mother. I let it ring twice before answering. "Hello?" "Emma, sweetheart. My mother's voice trembled, and I could hear the strain of what was about to come. "We don't understand what happened. Your father and I have been talking, and we're just so confused. Why did you pull out of the anniversary celebration? Why didn't you let us know? We didn't mean to hurt you." I sighed, running my hand through my hair. "Mom, I don't think you understand. I wasn't just pulling out of a party. I've been sidelined for years, always the afterthought. You've all expected me to foot the bill, to just pick up the pieces, but when it comes to including me in the family, you left me out. You've always left me out." There was a long pause, a quiet moment where I could hear her trying to piece together what I was saying. It wasn't what she wanted to hear. It wasn't what any of them wanted to hear. "Sweetheart, we never meant to treat you like that. You know that, right? It's just—" She stopped herself, and I could hear her taking a breath. "It's just that you're always so independent, so self-sufficient. We never saw you needing us like Marcus does." I felt my chest tighten. Of course, it all came down to that, the difference between me and Marcus. He was the one who needed their approval, the one who lived by their rules, who worked in a high-rise office in the city. They always told me I was doing just fine because I could take care of myself. They never saw my struggles, my victories, or the way I had quietly built my business on my own. "Mom," I started, my voice low, "it's not about needing you. It's about respect. I've been supporting this family in every way I could. Did you ever think I wanted anything in return? Or was it just that I was supposed to be fine, as long as I kept writing the checks?" Her voice cracked. "Emma, please. We didn't know. We never saw you that way." My throat tightened as I tried to hold my ground. "I don't expect you to understand. You've always been proud of Marcus. He's your golden child, the one you hold up as the success story, and I've been just the other one, the one you could rely on financially but not emotionally. I get it." Her silence echoed back at me, and I felt a pang of guilt for the words I'd just said. But they were the truth. After a beat, she spoke again, her voice soft, weary. "I don't want to lose you, Emma. Please, I need to understand so I can fix this." I squeezed my eyes shut, taking a steadying breath. "I'll meet you in person, Mom. But not yet. I need some time to figure out what I want from all of this." She was silent for a long moment before whispering, "We're still your family. You're not alone in this." I wanted to say more, but the words stuck in my throat. She hung up before I could speak, and I stood there, holding the phone to my ear, listening to the silence. It wasn't just about the anniversary party anymore. It was about all the years of quiet resentment that had built up, the unspoken expectations, and the fact that I had spent so long being the invisible one. For once, I was forcing them to see me for who I truly was, not just what I could give. I didn't want to tear the family apart, but I couldn't keep living in their shadows, pretending like everything was fine when it wasn't. They needed to see the full picture of who I had become, not just the financial support I had quietly provided all these years. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed again. This time, a message from my father. "Emma, your mother is upset. Please, let's talk. We need to figure this out as a family. Can we meet tomorrow?" I stared at the message, my mind swirling. Part of me wanted to just let it all go, to ignore their pleas and stand firm in my decision. Another part of me wanted to hear them out, to understand their side before I made my final choice. I had made a decision that would change everything. I couldn't turn back now. I wasn't ready for this. But then again, when would I ever be? I had spent years giving money, giving time, giving my energy to make them proud, to keep the peace. And now, I was about to stand up for myself in a way I never had before. My heart beat a little faster as I dialed my parents' number, knowing they were probably already gathered at Marcus's house, likely discussing the fallout from the party. It was time to stop running from the confrontation I had been avoiding for far too long. The phone rang once, twice, and then my father's voice came through, hesitant and apologetic. "Emma?" His tone was softer than I expected. "Listen, I know things have been tense. Your mother and I just want to understand what's going on. We've been trying to figure out what went wrong." I leaned back in my chair, setting my feet flat on the floor. "You don't get it, do you? This isn't just about the anniversary party. This is about years of me being invisible to you. Years of me sacrificing for this family while you treated me like a backup plan. Like I didn't matter unless I was writing checks or fixing problems." There was a pause on the other end of the line. I could almost picture him in his chair, rubbing his forehead, his mind scrambling for the right words. "Sweetheart, it's not like that." "Isn't it?" I cut him off. "When was the last time you actually saw me? Really saw me? I've spent my whole life trying to prove I'm worthy of your attention, but nothing I did was ever enough. And now, when I finally made a decision that's about me, you're scrambling to understand. You should have seen this coming." My father's voice cracked a little. "Emma, we've always been proud of you. We didn't understand your path, your career. It wasn't what we thought was success." I felt a sharp pang in my chest. "And that's the problem, Dad. You never respected what I built. You never saw me as successful because I didn't follow the same path as Marcus. You've always been proud of him. He was the one who went to law school, got the suits, climbed the ladder, but you never saw what I was doing, what I was creating. My business. It's my empire. My success didn't look like his, but it was just as real. And yet, I was always the family failure." "Emma, we didn't mean it like that," he said softly. I'm sorry. We never wanted to make you feel that way." I shook my head, though he couldn't see me. "It's not just about feeling that way, Dad. It's about the truth. You never saw me. Not as a daughter, not as someone whose success mattered. I've always been the other one, the one who just took care of things when they needed help. You treated me like a charity case." His voice softened, tinged with regret. "You're not a charity case, Emma. You're our daughter. I'm sorry we never made you feel that way." I pressed my lips together, struggling to find the right words. This was the moment, the one I had dreamed about for years, to finally say everything I had kept inside. But it wasn't easy. "I'm done being your backup plan. I'm done being the one who's expected to pick up the pieces while everyone else plays their parts." The silence that followed was thick. I could hear the sounds of movement in the background. Marcus probably trying to figure out how to fix things, trying to play the peacemaker as usual. Finally, my father spoke again, his voice a little firmer this time. "So, what now, Emma? What do you expect from us? We're still your family." I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath. "What I expect is respect. I'm setting boundaries now. No more being used. No more being seen as someone who's just here to help when things get difficult. If you want me in your life, it's on my terms. I'm not a tool for your convenience anymore." "Emma, this isn't easy," my father said, the hesitation still present in his voice. but we'll respect your decision. I felt a twinge of hope, but I wasn't going to let it cloud my judgment. You need to prove it, not just to me, but to yourselves. Start seeing me for who I am, and stop expecting me to just pick up the slack. Okay, he said, and I could hear the weight of his words. We'll try. We'll work on it. There was something in his voice, something I hadn't heard before. A kind of acknowledgement that maybe, just maybe, he understood where I was coming from, but the road ahead wasn't going to be easy. I'll meet you in person, I said, but not yet. I need time. All right, he replied quietly. We'll be here when you're ready. I hung up the phone, feeling a strange sense of finality. The conversation wasn't over, not by a long shot, but for the first time in my life, I felt like I was finally starting to get the respect I deserved. And as much as it hurt, I knew that this was the only way to get there. The discovery was like a punch to the gut, but I had been searching for it. I had to know the truth I had been unwilling to face for years. The truth about how much I had been silently propping up my family, all without any acknowledgement. I had spent the last few days going through my financial records, digging up old emails, contracts, and payment confirmations. As I scanned the documents, I found more than I expected. My mind had always quietly suspected that I was carrying the weight of my family's financial struggles, but I hadn't realized the extent of it. There it was, my brother's law office for one. He had always prided himself on his prestigious career, working as a corporate lawyer, climbing the ranks with seemingly little effort. But what he didn't tell anyone was that his office had been struggling for years. His client base was inconsistent, and his overhead was crippling. I had paid off several months' worth of rent for his office space when the bills piled up. The legal fees from a recent settlement, my check had cleared that one too. Then there was my sister. Lisa had always run her little boutique, but she'd never been able to turn a profit. She'd asked me to help out from time to time, and I had. Helping with inventory, paying off her suppliers, covering her expenses for months on end while she tried to get a handle on her business. I never expected to be repaid, but I never expected to be erased either. But the one that truly shocked me was my parents. I had always known I helped them out, paying for vacations, helping with their medical bills, handling some of their utilities when they fell behind. But as I scrolled through the transfers, I realized the sheer amount I had covered for them. The vacation they took last summer to the coast, paid for in full by me. The car repairs that they conveniently forgot to budget for, my expense. Every single major life event, every moment they celebrated had been cushioned by me. They had never asked for a loan, and I had never said no. It wasn't until I looked at the total amounts that I understood just how much I had given them, how much I had been quietly supporting them without a word of thanks or recognition. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. Had they always known? Had they been taking advantage of me all this time, never even realizing the depth of my sacrifices? Or worse, had they known exactly what they were doing, treating me like a bank, a lifeline they could pull from whenever they needed it? I sat back in my chair, trying to breathe through the tightness in my chest. My family hadn't just underestimated me, they had used me. They had seen me as an endless resource, and I had let them. For years, I had buried my frustrations because I believed in the idea of family, of supporting each other no matter what. But they didn't see me. They didn't respect me. They saw a paycheck, a safety net, and nothing more. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I needed to confront them. I needed to expose the truth, to finally stand up for myself and show them just how much I had silently carried all these years. I grabbed my laptop and began drafting the letter. I would detail everything, every financial contribution, every loan I had given, every single sacrifice I had made to keep them afloat. It would be clean, precise, and undeniable. No more quiet sacrifices. No more being the invisible backbone of the family. They needed to see the full picture of my life, of what I had done for them, and how they had dismissed me. As I clicked send, a strange sense of relief settled over me. The truth was out now, and there was no going back. I wasn't going to be the quiet one anymore. This wasn't just about the anniversary party anymore. This was about me reclaiming my power, my life, and the respect I deserved. I closed my laptop and sat back, letting the weight of the decision sink in. This was the turning point. Everything was about to change. The sun was beginning to set as I stood at the large wooden doors of my estate, watching my family pull up in their cars. I had kept the location of the celebration a secret, only revealing it when they were on their way. I knew they'd be shocked. I had planned it that way. The moment they stepped out of their cars, their expressions told me everything I needed to know. I had arranged a private, intimate gathering at my estate, far from the crowded, flashy event my family expected. This wasn't going to be just any celebration. It was about honoring my parents in a way they had never been honored before, by real people, not social climbers or people who only cared about appearances. My father and Marcus exchanged looks as they took in the vastness of the property. The landscaped gardens, the stunning view from the terrace, the rustic elegance of the place. It wasn't something they could ignore. This was not the life they had expected for me, but it was mine. "You live here?" Marcus asked, his voice betraying the surprise he clearly felt. His eyes scanned the surroundings, as if he was seeing me for the first time. I gave him a small nod. "Yeah, I do." My mother, her eyes wide, was the first to speak as she stepped into the reception area. The moment she saw the beautiful setting, something in her face shifted. Her eyes welled up, and for the first time in years, I saw a raw emotion from her. Guilt. Real guilt. "Emma!" Her voice was choked, her hand coming up to wipe her eyes. This is beautiful. I never knew." I swallowed hard, the lump in my throat threatening to stop me from speaking. "I wanted to do something special for you too, something that would honor everything you've done for me, but not in the way you expect." My father, normally the proud and stoic one, took a step forward, his shoulders slumping a little. "Emma, I didn't know. I never understood what you were doing." "I'm sorry." The apology was tentative, hesitant, but it was the first time I had ever heard it from him in any meaningful way. He had always been so proud of Marcus, always pushing me aside in favor of him. But now, seeing him in the light of my success, I could see the conflict on his face, the realization that he had missed the truth all along. "Dad," I said, my voice firm, "it's not just about the money I've given you or the things I've helped with. It's about respect. I've been invisible to you for so long." There was a shift in the air, a tense silence that hung between us. My mother, still overwhelmed, tried to mask her discomfort with a forced smile. "You've always been such a good daughter, Emma. We didn't see everything you were doing. We didn't understand what it meant to you." My breath caught. "And what about when I was trying to build my business? You never took me seriously. You always thought of me as the other one, the one who wasn't as important because I didn't wear a suit and tie like Marcus." Marcus, standing off to the side, looked uncomfortable as the words hung in the air. He opened his mouth to say something but stopped, his gaze shifting between me and our parents. He had always been the one who was proud of the respectable career path, the one who had to prove himself, who needed validation. I, on the other hand, had quietly built an empire of my own, one that no one had ever truly seen. "Marcus," I said, turning to face him, "I've always supported you, but you never once respected what I've done. I quietly paid for your office space, your legal fees, your settlements, and not once did you acknowledge it. I wasn't just your sister, I was the one who always bailed you out." Marcus opened his mouth, looking like he wanted to argue but then closed it. His expression was one of shock. He hadn't known I had been that involved, that I had been silently covering for him, paying for his success while he continued to ridicule mine. "We took you for granted," my father said quietly, his voice full of regret. "I don't think we ever realized how much you were doing for us, how much you were giving up." I stepped forward, my hands clasped in front of me as I looked at both of my parents. "It's not just about the money anymore. It's about how you've treated me, how you've seen me as less than Marcus, because I chose a different path. I built my own life. I built my own empire. It's time you saw me for who I am, not just the one who picks up the slack." My mother wiped her eyes again, her gaze softening. "I know, Emma. I know. We've made mistakes. But we love you. We always have." The words didn't fully reach me. Not yet. I had heard them too many times before, words that didn't hold any real weight. But this was a start. This was them seeing me for the first time. "Love is more than just words, Mom," I said. "It's respect. And you're going to have to show me that." There was a long silence as my family absorbed what I had said. For the first time, they were faced with the reality of my life, of the choices I had made and the things I had done in silence for them. Let's enjoy today," I said, trying to break the tension, but my voice had softened. "This is about you two. You've been married for years, and you deserve to feel celebrated." And for the first time in a long while, my parents looked at me as if they were truly seeing me. Maybe it wasn't full reconciliation yet, but it was a step in the right direction. The road ahead would be long, but I knew with a certain clarity that this was where things began to change. Slowly, the weight that had hung over us all seemed to lift, just a little. The air was thick with tension as Marcus and I sat across from each other at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd spent so many hours poring over paperwork, managing the intricacies of my business, and making sure everything ran smoothly. Today, however, it wasn't business. It was family. He wasn't angry anymore, not the way he had been on the phone. Instead, he was quieter, more reflective, like he was trying to understand something he had long dismissed. I could see the guilt in his eyes, but also a trace of regret. This was the moment I realized when the walls between us started to crumble. The one thing we had never done, truly talk, was finally happening. I don't know what happened, he said slowly, breaking the silence. I I thought I was just trying to keep things together, you know? I never realized how much you were actually doing. I never saw it. Not until now. I took a deep breath, letting his words sink in. I had been waiting for this moment, but I hadn't expected it to feel so hollow. In a way, I wanted to be angry, but I just couldn't bring myself to. Not anymore. You never saw it because you never looked, Marcus. For years, you've only ever seen what you wanted to see. Your career, your successes, they were always more important than mine. He shifted uncomfortably in his chair, his gaze dropping to the table. That's not fair, he murmured. I didn't mean for it to be that way. I guess I just thought you didn't care about the stuff that mattered, the kind of success that looks like something. I felt a familiar sting, but I held it in, forcing myself to speak through it. That's the problem. You thought success had to look a certain way. You never understood that my work, the business I've built, is just as valuable, even if it doesn't come with a title, a suit, or a corporate office. It's real. It's mine. Marcus finally looked up, his eyes wide with a mix of surprise and something I hadn't seen from him in a long time. Genuine curiosity. How much of it was me, Emma? How much of your life did I take for granted? I know I made fun of you. I know I never took you seriously, but I never thought it was like this. You've been holding everything up all along, haven't you? The weight of his words hit me hard, and for a moment I almost faltered. My hand gripped the edge of the table to steady myself. Yeah, I have, I said softly. But that's not all of it. I didn't just help you out of obligation. I did it because I thought if I helped, if I supported you, then you'd see me, maybe even respect me. But it never happened. Not once. The silence between us grew heavy as his shoulders slumped, the realization settling in. I was jealous of you, Emma, he admitted, his voice quiet. All these years, I've been jealous. You've always seemed so free. You built something without needing anyone else's approval. And I was stuck in the rat race, trying to prove myself, but what I never saw was that you were proving something too. You were proving that you didn't need anyone but yourself. His words stunned me. It wasn't something I had ever expected to hear from him, not after all the years of dismissal, all the times he had belittled my path. I was just trying to build something that was mine, I said, the lump in my throat rising again. I didn't need anyone's approval, but I did need respect. I needed you to see me as an equal. He nodded slowly, his voice filled with regret. I see it now. I see everything, Emma, and I'm sorry. I've been so focused on myself that I never stopped to see how much you've been carrying, how much you've given without asking for anything in return. You didn't deserve any of the things I said to you. I could feel the anger melting away, replaced by something more painful, sadness. It wasn't just the words, Marcus, I said, shaking my head. It was the actions. You never believed in me. And I kept giving, kept hoping that one day you'd see me as more than just the person who pays the bills. I can't keep doing that. I can't keep hoping for something that's never coming. He reached out, his hand hovering for a moment before he set it down on the table. I was wrong, he said again, his voice heavy with emotion. And I don't expect you to forgive me right away. But I'm asking you to try, Emma. I want to fix this. I want to be better. For you. I looked at him, the brother I had always felt so far removed from, and I saw something in him I hadn't expected, a desire to change, to truly understand. For the first time, it felt like he was seeing me, really seeing me. I'm not doing this for you to apologize, Marcus, I said, my voice steady. I'm doing this because I finally realized that I deserve better. I deserve to be respected. And I'm not going to settle for anything less, not from you and not from anyone else. He sat back in his chair, his eyes never leaving mine. I get it. I really do. And I'll respect you, Emma. I promise. You've earned that. The words felt like a balm, soothing the hurt that had built up over the years. It wasn't forgiveness yet, but it was a start. Behind me, the door creaked open, and Lisa entered, her face flushed with emotion. She had overheard the last part of the conversation. Her eyes softened as she walked toward the table, her hand resting gently on my shoulder. "Emma," she said quietly, her voice tinged with guilt. "I'm sorry, too. I didn't realize how much you were carrying, and I didn't support you the way I should have. I've always envied your strength, even if I didn't know how to say it." I looked up at her, her vulnerability shining through. And for the first time in a long time, I felt a flicker of warmth. Maybe things were finally starting to change. "We've all made mistakes," I said, smiling through the ache in my chest. "But it's never too late to change." The conversation between the four of us continued, and as we spoke, the understanding began to deepen. Slowly, we started acknowledging the ways we had failed each other, both past and present. But this time, it felt like we were finally on the same page. It had been a few months since the anniversary celebration debacle, and something in the air had shifted. I could feel it. The subtle change in the way we interacted as a family, the way we talked to each other, even the small gestures of kindness that hadn't been there before. I was sitting in my office, sifting through some new event contracts for the upcoming year, when my phone buzzed on the desk. It was Lisa. I hesitated for a second. I hadn't heard much from her since the family's reunion at the estate. There had been small steps in the right direction, but I didn't know where she stood yet. Her message made me pause. "Hey, can we talk? I need your help with something." I leaned back in my chair, scrolling through my messages. It was an odd time for Lisa to reach out. Usually, she would just text a quick joke or a comment about some new trend in the boutique world, not something this serious. I quickly dialed her number. "Hey, what's up?" she answered almost immediately, her voice slightly shaky. I need your advice. I'm planning my wedding, and, well, I'd really like your help. I know it's a big ask, but you've always had this knack for making everything look amazing. I just want it to be perfect, and I know I can't do it alone." I felt a warmth rise in my chest at her words. A few months ago, this conversation would have felt awkward. There would have been a wall between us, one built from years of distance and a sense of competition that I hadn't realized existed. But now, there was something different in her voice, a shift, a vulnerability that wasn't there before. I smiled softly. "Of course, Lisa. I'd love to help. You deserve to have the wedding of your dreams." The relief in her voice was almost palpable. "I was really hoping you'd say that. Honestly, I guess I've been feeling like I don't really know how to do any of this. You've always had a handle on things. I guess I was too proud to admit that before." Her words struck me harder than I expected. Lisa had always been the confident, independent one, the one who seemed like she had it all together. But beneath that, there had always been an undertone of insecurity, of trying to live up to some standards she thought she had to meet. For the first time, she was reaching out to me as someone who wasn't just there to lend a helping hand financially, but as a person she respected and wanted to be a part of her life in a deeper way. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of everything that had happened between us lift just a little. "Lisa, we've both been through a lot, but I'm glad we're in a place where we can help each other now. Let's make this wedding one to remember for all the right reasons." She laughed softly. "Thank you. You have no idea how much this means to me." It was in that moment, as I sat there on the other end of the line, that I realized just how much had changed. The relationship I'd once had with my family, especially with Lisa, was nothing like it had been before. What had been strained and distant was now shifting into something more honest, more real. We were learning to be there for each other, not just financially, but emotionally, in a way that felt genuine. In the weeks that followed, we spent hours going over wedding plans, discussing everything from the venue to the smallest details that would make the day special. I offered my expertise, but I never once felt like I was being taken advantage of. For the first time, I wasn't just the person with the resources. I was the person who was wanted in the room for my ideas and my perspective. And that felt good. During one of our late-night wedding planning sessions, Lisa mentioned something casually that stopped me in my tracks. "You know, I always thought you were doing fine, like just running your little events business. But now, seeing how much you've built, I don't know why I never realized how big it was. I mean, I always made fun of you for not being one of the suits, but you're way more successful than I ever gave you credit for." I laughed softly, knowing how much those words meant. "We all have our paths, Lisa. I'm just glad we're seeing each other clearly now." We had come full circle. The walls had fallen, and I was no longer seen just as the person who could be counted on to pay for things or organize events. I was being seen for who I truly was. And I could feel the bonds within my family growing stronger with each passing day. It wasn't about money anymore. It was about authenticity, about respect, about finally being understood. A few weeks later, I found myself sitting across from my parents again in a much more comfortable setting. We were having dinner together, and this time, the conversation was different. It wasn't about money, obligations, or expectations. It was just about us, what had happened, what we had learned, and where we were going from here. My father, who had been distant and somewhat dismissive in the past, looked me in the eye and said, "Emma, I've been thinking a lot about everything. And I have to say, I didn't fully understand what you were doing. But I get it now. I'm proud of you. Proud of what you've built. Not because it's something I can measure or compare to Marcus's career, but because it's something you've created on your own, with your own hands." My mother, always the one who tried to keep the peace, nodded, her eyes softening with emotion. "We've missed so much of your life, Emma, and I want to do better. I want to support you in the way you've always supported us." It wasn't perfect. We still had a lot to work through, but it was a start. The healing had begun. As I helped Lisa finalize her wedding plans, I realized something. We were no longer just a family that had used each other. We were learning to support each other, to love each other for who we truly were. And that, I realized, was worth everything. The family dynamic had shifted, and I felt more connected to them than I had in years. There was no longer a distance between us, no longer an invisible line that separated the successful ones from the failures. We were all just people, struggling, growing, and learning. And as the wedding day neared, I knew that this was just the beginning. The day of Lisa's wedding arrived with an energy I hadn't felt in a long time. The sun was shining, the flowers were in full bloom, and as I stood there in the courtyard, watching my family bustle around the venue, I felt a peace settle over me that I never thought was possible. The family that had once been so fractured, so unsure of how to connect, was now fully together. There was no longer the weight of financial expectation between us, no silent resentments or unspoken judgments. We had gone through the fire, and now we were standing stronger, with more love and respect for each other than I ever imagined we could have. Marcus was the first to approach me that morning, his face open and vulnerable. He gave me a long look, and for a second, I wondered if he was going to apologize again. But instead, he smiled, his eyes softening with genuine pride. "Emma," he said, his voice full of sincerity, I don't know how to say this, but I've been thinking a lot about everything, about how I treated you, how I took you for granted, and how wrong I was." I nodded, letting him continue. His words weren't new. We had talked through a lot of the anger and regret in the weeks before, but hearing him say them again, in this moment, felt different. Real. "I've always been so focused on myself," he went on, looking at me earnestly. "And I think I was just jealous. You built something I never understood, and I should have been proud of that, not dismissive of it." I could see the struggle in his face, the weight of years of tension finally lifting. "I'm proud of you, Emma. I really am, and I'm sorry for the way I've treated you, for not seeing you for who you really are." I felt a tightness in my chest. "Marcus, it's okay," I said softly. "I'm not doing this for your apology. I'm doing this because I had to set boundaries. For me, and for us." He smiled, the tension easing in his shoulders. "I get that. I really do." Before I could say anything else, Lisa appeared, walking over with a look that could only be described as a mixture of excitement and gratitude. She had her own set of emotions to work through, but now, standing before me, her face filled with relief, I knew we had crossed a threshold. "Emma," she said, her voice quieter than usual, I just want to thank you for everything, for being there for me, for helping me plan this. I've been feeling so overwhelmed, and you've really come through for me in a way that I don't think I could have ever imagined." I gave her a warm smile, one that said everything we didn't need to speak aloud. "You've got this, Lisa. You've always had this. I just helped in ways I know best." She laughed, wiping away a stray tear. "I don't know how I would have done it without you." The ceremony began shortly after that, and as I stood beside my family, watching my sister marry the love of her life, I couldn't help but reflect on how much had changed. The distance between us had disappeared. My family had come full circle. No longer was I the one providing silently from the background. Now, we were all learning to support each other in ways that went beyond money. Later that evening, as we sat around the reception, Marcus stood up, his glass raised high. The music died down, and the room went silent. "To my sister," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. Emma, you've been the glue that held us together when we were all too busy with our own lives to see what was right in front of us. I've been wrong about a lot of things, and you're the one who taught me that. I don't say this enough, but I'm proud of you, and I'm sorry for everything. For not seeing you, for not appreciating you the way I should have. There was a long pause before the room erupted into applause, and for the first time, it felt like a weight had been lifted, not just from my shoulders, but from everyone in the room. I could feel my heart swelling as I watched the people I had once been so estranged from come together, their words of pride and love now flowing freely. This was what I had been searching for all along. Not just acknowledgement of my success, but the recognition that I was enough, just as I was. For the first time, I felt seen, heard, and valued. As the night continued, we danced, we laughed, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I truly felt at peace. My family had come together in a way I had never thought possible. We weren't just bound by blood or by expectations anymore. We were bound by something real: respect, love, and a newfound understanding of each other. As the evening wound down, I looked around at my family, my heart full. The journey hadn't been easy, but it had been worth it. Every uncomfortable conversation, every moment of pain, had led to this: an authentic, supportive, and loving family dynamic. I knew the road ahead wouldn't always be smooth, but for the first time, I felt confident in my place within my family. They valued me now, not for what I could give, but for who I truly was. And as I watched Lisa and her new husband share their first dance, surrounded by family that had come to see the truth of who I was, I realized that this moment was the new beginning I had always needed. This was what it was all for.